Hi everybody, welcome to Shivers. I don't know about you, but this past weekend I was stuck inside from this East Coast ice storm, snowstorm, whatever you want to call it. So I ran through a lot of movies and TV shows this weekend. So for today's episode, I really want to just talk about Snow Day horror, rating and reviewing each of the movies or TV shows that I've watched. So I'm going to get started with a classic. Every year for any time in the snowy season, I always watch the movie The Lodge. This is from 2019. I would give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. It's definitely my favorite wintertime horror movie, but it's also just a really great movie in general. This is all about these two kids who lose their mom and are now subject to going on this sort of family vacation 6 months later with the dad's new fiance. This fiance has a lot of mental problems, has a history of being in a cult, and met this kid's dad by being his patient. So she already has all these things that are going on in the background of just her. And in the meantime, these kids are absolutely devastated, not only that they've lost their mom, but also just at how the dad is acting and his behavior, and them getting a new stepmom basically 6 months after their mom is gone. It's horrible. So throughout the entire weekend, there's all of these things that are going on at this lodge. It's the middle of winter. They're on this icy lake. Anything can happen. The dad gets called to go to work and says, "Oh, just bond with the kids. It'll be fine. They'll be great." So she does what she can, playing babysitter, playing stepmom. And in the meantime, all of these things are going on in the house. So you think that the house is sort of haunted. Her stuff starts going missing. Her medicine is missing. And she starts freaking out at the kids. They're like, "We didn't do anything. We don't know where all of this stuff is going either. Like, we're just as scared as you are." So as time goes on, we figure out that this is all a plan from the kids. So we, the audience, first time watching it through, you really do think that this is just a haunted place. Maybe the history of her cult is kind of catching up to her, but now we realize it's all a plan from the kids, and they really make her snap psychologically. So the ending of that movie, she believes that they're all dead and that they have to pay for their sins and have penance and also sacrifice someone. So she ends up, spoiler alert, shooting the dad, and he's dead. So now these kids have no parents, and she sits them all at the dinner table with this really messed up religious picture behind them, and we need to say our prayers, we need to be forgiven, blah blah blah. So it's a super dreadful movie. This is one that's going to stick with you for a while. So after The Lodge, then I watched a movie called Found Footage. This came out in 2025. This is technically the making of the Patterson Project. So it's called Found Footage, the making of the Patterson Project. I would give this one about a 3.2 out of 5. I love found footage movies. I love anything that has almost that like quirky parody style to it, both of which are in this movie. But the main character is just really over the top. He's a filmmaker. He wants to make this in the wilderness film about finding Bigfoot. And just his passion and like very New York, very Broadway, very over the top of artsy. It's really, really, the whole thing just, I wish it would have almost just leaned parody, because they then tried to make it actually scary and have this twist in it where there's certain people who believe that Bigfoot is real in that area, and there's certain people who don't, and then they disturb the land of this house that they've rented to film in the woods. So all of these things really just get out of control. So because it's so fantastical and over the top, again, I would love if it just leaned more into the parody and just kind of accept it for what it is. But because it was still trying to take itself seriously as a scary movie, it didn't work. So that one is a little bit of a blah. One that I was incredibly surprised with is a movie called Twinless. This is on Hulu. I have been wanting to watch this. This is with Dylan O'Brien. This came out in 2025. This movie is something that's really unique, and I think it's one that's going to stick with me for quite a while. Not only have I spoken about it before, but I have a twin sister. So not only being able to watch the whole movie from the perspective of like How would you feel if your other half were to die? Is this just another sibling? Is this just another family member? Is there some soul connection to you that dies as well? So it's all very interesting to think about. But also from the interesting perspective is that like there's so many people who like fetishize twins. And so this movie sort of explores that side too, that says, are you an actual person because you're tied to someone else because you have a clone? But do you have a soul? Do you have your own voice? Are you your own person? Or are you something that I can think of conceptually rather than just in person? So there's a lot of really interesting twin messages that are in that. I think Dylan O'Brien himself does a fantastic job at acting in this movie. He is a little bit over the top for when he starts playing his brother. Of course, they can't just pick twins, but whatever. So, but his anger and rage and just sadness as the person who has now lost his brother, it's really real and it really captures you, which is just fantastic. So that movie and the feeling and the ties and the drama, I absolutely loved it. I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. And no, it's not stereotypically a horror movie, but it is certainly dreadful and suspenseful, and the entire time you're waiting for the truth to come out. So it's great. After that, I stuck with Hulu and I watched a movie called I Don't Understand You. This is from 2025 with Nick Kroll. I am a big Nick Kroll fan. Again, this is not a scary movie whatsoever. This is a comedy. It's a little bit too family friendly for me. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about comedy because it's not what we do, but I really love Nick Kroll's comedy. I love Big Mouth. I love everything that he made with The Kroll Show. And so all of his characters, I do like the embodiment of it. This to me was just like almost a fantasy. Like it felt like I was reading and watching somebody's private fantasy, which is just, it felt weird to watch it. So it was funny, but it was too family friendly and it was a little bit too specific in just the writing and the structure of it from Nick Kroll for me to feel a certain type of way. As a group for Shivers, we do online movie nights. So we snuck an online movie night in on Sunday and we watched the ending of the Harry Potter marathon. So right before Christmas, we attempted to watch every single Harry Potter movie in order. It's always been something I've wanted to do. And we got all the way to Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2 before it was just like, we're done, we're tapping out. So we went back and we finished those. They are from 2010 and 2011, which is pretty crazy. I have always been a Harry Potter fan. I went to all the premieres when they came out. I have all the actual physical DVDs, which is kind of cool. But rewatching them, I really enjoy on a pretty regular basis. I love the Goblet of Fire. That's by far the best one for me. It has that Hunger Games feel, but still the competition and still fun. But the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2 is much more grim, very, very dark. This is not something that you would, if you start watching with your kids when your kids are like 5 or 6, you're great. But Deathly Hallows Part 1, Part 2, save for maybe 13 onward. A lot of people die. It's the grand finale, so it's got to be something special. But it's a pretty sad to end on. But watch those regardless, and would give both of them probably about a 4.7. Again, I think they're really great movies. They're very well done. Whatever is said about the author and all of her beliefs separate work from person, I guess. So the only other movie to talk about is Game Night. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. This is from 2018. This gets a 5 out of 5 because it is anybody who asks me what are my top 3 non-horror movies, favorite horror movies, Game Night, Ready Player One, and probably The Greatest Showman. So Game Night is much more of a comedy. It is a little bit of a twist. It is a little bit suspense. We are all playing this sort of murder mystery game night with Brooks, this very successful brother of our main character. He swoops in and has this very elaborate game night, all to come find out that some of Brooks's personal criminal stuff is being implemented into this game. So it's a little bit of a mix of crime from the brother and suspense and trying to figure out what's true and untrue, the gameplay aspect from almost that like comic book feel. So this is a really cool one. I would say probably almost all ages, anybody can get something out of this movie. So in terms of TV shows, I did finish Pluribus. This, to me, I always tend to slip into that mindset of like solipsism sometimes. And this show to me was like the perfect encapsulation of how scary that is. A lot of people are like, oh, it's so funny with Pluribus that like you would be the only person who that they would serve and help and blah, blah, blah. But the mindset then that like you are truly alone is really scary. So Pluribus to me, from a concept perspective, 10 out of 10 scary. I mean, the thought that you are one of 11 people left on Earth, you can't fight against these people. They're sort of cheering for you, they're manipulating you, but not intentionally, and you can't really do anything. It's terrifying, but it has such a great conversation around just the fact that we need people and we can't stay inside all the time and isolate ourselves. We need something. So Pluribus is really something that's pretty unique. I don't know that I would go as far as saying I liked it because it just is a freaky concept to me, but I would probably give that like a 4.3 out of 5 as a show. It's a good one. So those are all of the snow day watches that we have this past weekend. Share in the comments what'd you get into? What'd you watch? Anything worth recommending, worth sharing? For the rest of January, our Monday movies are going to still be that winter time theme, but coming up on February, we got more of that Bloody Valentine's feel. So check out all of our upcoming events online and in person, wherever you find at Shivers Haunted, or our website is just shivershaunted.com. So thanks as always for your support and for listening, and we'll see you next time.